Welcome to
The Cleaning,
a podcast about Apple TV Plus's Silo Season 2. This is episode 9. My name is Catfish, and with me, as always, it's Bubba. Bubba, no one wants to hear your ideas.
Guys, we are talking about episode 9, The Safeguard. Billings is shaken. Lukas heads to the down deep. Knox identifies a traitor. Juliette uncovers the truth about Solo's past. On this thing, we've got all our usual things, including our good friend Double M Matt Murdick is back with his musical analysis. Catfish, before we get to our rankings of this penultimate episode of season 2, we got to go to our double L's.
Double L's?
Loyal listeners who've sent us stuff already.
I love it.
And this first one may be a new loyal listener. Stax Francis wrote, first YouTube video I came across, and I'm subscribing.
Yes. Ooh. Jen F. Catmom says, I give it 8 double C's.
Wait, double C's?
Commander Camille. She's going to end up running the place. That would be great. The way the writers have changed Sims from season 1 to season 2 is bewildering. It's like he was a paid a visit from Cyril Khan's mom, the double E.
Double E?
Emasculating Edie. I think he's lost his mojo.
Haven't we all? Our good buddy Link Hogthrob on Blue Sky reached out and said, finally, things are happening. He gives this episode 8.5 double T's.
Double T's?
Tunnel twists.
Ooh.
Link continues, I'm still not pleased with the 8 episodes of foreplay. I miss season 1's murder mystery vibe and the fast pace. I started reading the book Wool to help offset the show's shortcoming. Ooh.
Oh boy, now some people are going to start yelling at you, Link. They're yelling at us for reading the books and comparing the shortcomings. Now, Ms. Vicky on Blue Sky says, for me, this was definitely a redemption episode. I really did not like the last one, but now things are heading in the right direction.
Maggie May, who's Maggie May, M-A-E, 50 on Blue Sky said, why couldn't every episode be as good as this episode 9? Episodes like episode 9 are why we're watching this show in the first place.
Maggie, I think it's because they saved everything interesting for episode 9. But we'll get into that in my rating.
Yeah.
Bubba Get Mike says, this episode is a 10 out of 10 triple Ps.
Wait, triple Ps?
Yeah, plotting, pace, paying off. Rapid story progression, answers, and great plot and character developments. Bubba?
Yeah.
We care what they think. Nobody cares what you think. I'm giving this episode 7 out of 10, what I like to call triple Gs.
Wait, triple Gs?
Yeah. Gates's grimdark geolocation. This is for Silo 17. Bubba.
Wait, does Gates mean Matt Gates?
Yeah, Matt Gates, because his favorite Silo is Silo 17.
No, boy.
For reasons that we all know. And have been shown in a report, a congressional report. Okay. First of all, Bubba, I gotta say something. I find your weekly listing of your positives and negatives after your episode rating to be unimaginative and inartistic. Okay?
Oh, no. Yeah.
So here are my positives for this episode. I love everything coming together, finally.
Yes.
I love the double K.
The double K.
Yeah, that is for Knox knows. He knows about Walker. This is my assumption. And he out-Bernards Bernard by feeding false information to Walker that Bernard actually buys. I have fallen off the Bernard Bro train. He got duped by a mechanical.
Oh, man. Holy smokes.
Another great thing. We got Camille and the Down Deep possibly working together. That's great when worlds come together. We got Solo's backstory, and we're ready to move on from Silo 17. And I love the ending with Lukas.
Boy, that's a lot of love for only 7 out of 10, Catfish. Those are great things.
You know, last week I started with run rating and then went up. This week I wrote my rating down, and then I wrote all my positives, and then I wrote all my negatives. And then after that, I changed it back to a 7 negatives. Thank God we are getting out of Silo 17. There is no way. But shortly. Probably. Okay. There is no way on my computer or any of the standard settings on my TV, movie, dynamic, whatever, that I can see some of the things happening in Silo 17. Now, at the end, I could see things, but all that stuff in the dark, oh my God. There was more to the revelation about Solo than just that the revolution happened to him as a kid. But they made that revelation seem big And that was a real dud for me because I assumed from his personality that he was that all along. So when a show is like, dun dun, I go, yeah, I knew that. That falls flat for me.
Well,
Now,
all those scenes in the classroom, you and I would say, boy, he's obviously from the class. And Juliette,
and
Juliette
the way he
not
acts.
paying attention. She needed to listen to the podcast to remember, oh, he must be from this school.
He's like, he puts equal importance in knowing about elephants and antibiotics. Okay, so obviously stunted growth.
Just like every kid.
To continue along with Solo, I know that I'm horrible and most people don't care about this, but I don't care about Solo's background.
Whoa.
I don't care about the revolution in Silo 17 and its effect on the kids that we met. And you know why, Bubba?
Why?
I just got to know the kids this episode. You can't make me care too much about them. Last episode, they were shooting and attacking the people we like, or in my case for Solo, it could go either way on. But now we're supposed to care about this. I don't care. I'm sure many people do. And now here's the thing. Now, I might be projecting, but I'm now worried that after we had that slow pace, people love this episode because everything is happening at once without them being seeded. We just now have the idea of Camille and the Down Deep working together. And, and the idea is probably this is going to come to a big head. The next episode is the season finale. We should have had seeds for that planted earlier. Just like it took us until episode 4 or more to plant the idea that there was something more dangerous to the silo than the revolution. And so I feel like they're holding things back for Big Bang finale rather than seeding them earlier. For example, it just occurred to me this episode, the revolution has been at a stalemate for like 5 episodes, right? And we know the big thing that Juliette was worried about. Juliette's worried everyone's going to want to go outside because they're going to learn the truth. But there has been no movement towards that until this episode, episode 9. Why not circulate that idea earlier? And so it's bubbling up. Instead, it's all saved for the last 2 episodes. And so for me, it's like, yes, this episode was exciting. And so maybe I should have given it a higher ranking, but I just don't know why we did this. Just like some of the feedback we got earlier. It's like, this is a great payoff, but it could have been even greater if there were seeds for this earlier. So that is my law. I mean, you were talking about you ranting. I just ranted, Bubba.
Holy smokes. Well, what's very interesting, Catfish, is when you listen to my take, you're going to say, you just copied my notes. What's going on? But my score is completely different. I am giving this 9 double J's out of 10.
Oh, yeah, double J. What, double J's?
Yeah, that's Juliette Jr. Here, Audrey in Silo 17 is a cranky, angry, just filled with rage mini Juliette Jr. And so we met her. In some ways, I even like that. I want to talk about all the wonderful things in this episode, man. This episode ends with a sit up in your chair. Things are dangling. What in the F is going on moment down in the tunnel at the door with Lukas? You're like, holy smokes. Wow. What is that? The Juliette, who I'm always so tough on, and Solo, that moment where, hey, I'm going to put my hand on your shoulder and I guess we're friends now moment. It was good. It was wonderful. Bernard, who you are no longer a Bernard bro, but Bernard sliding into Walker's DMs. I mean, this is some great, great stuff. 9 out of 10. This episode is so good. My less than positives has nothing to do with this episode. My less than positives, and the reason why I don't go 10 out of 10 is because of all the past stuff. Bernard blackmailing Walker to do devious things and report on the Down Deep. That is devious and delicious. Yet it's only been going on for 2 episodes, meaning that, episodes 1 through 7 was a slow plodding way to get there. Now, people are going to look at me and say, well, Bubba, you complained that the show isn't fast enough here. 2 episodes in, he's really, just 2 episodes, he's got her blackmailed. They've discovered she's the snitch, all these things. It's not that it's moving fast and I want it stretched out, but I'm going to say if you were going to stretch something out, stretch out the stuff of Walker being a snitch, Walker being a traitor. That's something you could stretch out because it's so delicious and fun. Instead, they stretched out the build-up to Walker being a snitch. And they kind of did that with every storyline. It's not against this episode. This episode's great. And so we just almost can't get over it. And we got this great feedback from NZ Braden. The show writers, they have not done well to convey the urgency. And I am like 110%. All this time I've been saying start the dang war, and people are like, oh, Bubba's bloodlust. And yes, I would like more action. But the point of it is think of this. The season opened with people, rebelling in Silo 17, going outside, dying. They gave us that not only to, give us an idea of, okay, this is a destroyed silo. How does it exist? How did Juliette get into it? Yada, yada, yada. The show writers gave it to us because that idea of, oh no, that could happen to our original silo with all the characters we love. Oh no, Juliette's got to get back there and stop that from happening.
Right.
But if you aren't even close to it, as you've said, and sadly, your notes are exactly mine, that also is the impetus of, oh my God, these idiots are going to rebel and open the silo and everybody's going to die. That is the impetus for Bernard to do the wicked things he does. But if that isn't happening, like if nobody's close to opening the door and letting all the toxins into the silo or human beings running out of the silo,
right?
There's no need as an audience member. I see Juliette. I'm like, Juliette, you don't have to rush to get back to your silo. It's not close. You're like, Bernard, you're doing wicked things, but this war's in a stalemate. Nobody's close to running outside and letting toxins in and this stuff. And so it's not my bloodlust. It's, as Braden said in one sentence, which I wish I'd been saying weeks ago, is give us the urgency. This episode did a great job.
And the way to do that, like I said, is you can plant the seeds for these things earlier.
Yes.
And then we can go along. Like you said with Walker, we could know about Walker for a while. We can have Camille, try to reach out here. It doesn't just have to be Billings, but because I feel like they are gonna rush a whole bunch of stuff next week.
Well, Catfish. Like let me get to your other point. These kids in Silo 17, we literally saw their faces for a flash at the end of episode 8. In episode 9. We meet them, we get their names, we get their backstory, we see what their drive is. They want revenge for their murdered parents, and we get a resolution to it. Like all that stuff happened in one episode.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that everything could have happened earlier or could have stretched out, but what if, back in maybe episode 5 or 6, where people were feeling Silo 17 storyline really dragging, and instead of maybe a camera angle showing possibly somebody watching, what if you actually showed, over one of the kid's shoulder? You don't know he's a kid, but you see this figure over his shoulder staring and watching. And so then it's like Hitchcock's, there's a bomb under the table. Hitchcock's big thing is if there's a bomb under the table, if the audience doesn't find out until a second goes off, it's one big shock. Like, oh my God, there's a bomb. Everybody's dead. But if you show the audience, hey, there's a bomb under the table, and then let the scene play out, it's like an hour. It's, it can be an hour of, oh my God, they got to get away from this table or it's going to blow up. If they had just kind of given definitive proof that the kids were there earlier, that would have maybe added tension to Silo 17.
Even for people who maybe are younger than that, think of the Inglourious Bastard scene with Christoph Waltz with the person under the floorboard.
Yeah.
That is just delicious tension throughout that scene.
What's funny is, once again, this episode's great. And in some ways, this episode is bringing out our frustration with the whole season. So this week, I just, on social media, on Twitter and Blue Sky, I just searched Silo. And if you look at the comments, it's literally 2 things. This show is great, we love it. Or this season 2 is so slow and the pace is so bad, I'm dropping it. Like literally, those are all the only 2 things that people are writing. And these are people not quiet quitting, but they're loud quitting. They're typing out, I'm leaving this show. Now, if you're in the first camp and you love this show, let me say, do not let anything that Catfish and I say take away from your love of it. We always say, who cares what we think? We don't want to take away from your loving of it. And you're going to hear me, because I went 9 out of 10, you're going to hear me sing the praises of this episode like there's no tomorrow. And speaking of social media, I always talk about, hey, we're double PHQ on every social media platform, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Facebook, Blue Sky. What we haven't had, Catfish, is what? The most important social media of all, TikTok. And so I was very worried that our comrades in China didn't know how much we love to talk about Silo. So just this week, I haven't had a single post yet. I've created double PHQ on TikTok. What we will put there, who knows? But we have double PHQ on your favorite social media program being followed by the Chinese government.
Bubba, I think it should just be Bubba mini rants, one after the other.
If you guys have an idea of what we should put on TikTok, let us know. Okay, boy, we have gone long in our ratings, but it's good to get this off our chest because we just got to be, we're your friends watching the show with you. We've exhaled. Now let's get back to our typical silliness, Catfish. And this is a big one. Is it better in either silo, Silo 17, Silo 18, or is it better to live in our real world right now? Based on episode 9, what is your thought? Where is it better to be?
Bubba, this really isn't based on episode 9. First,
oh, no.
This is, like a serious thing. We are here in the second week of January of 2025. And we are I am in Los Angeles, and it is just heartbreaking what is happening here with the fires. So I just want everyone who has been displaced or affected. I feel like everybody in Los Angeles has been affected, and many have been displaced or lost homes. We have our nothing but love in our heart for you, and hope that you recover soon. But based on what's happening in the world right now, in the first week and a half of 2025, Bubba, I want to go hide anywhere in the silo.
Catfish, I was thinking about this also earlier when we were doing these show notes. If you look at my life, the city I've lived in the longest in my life is Los Angeles. That's where you and I met. Yeah. It is a great city filled with great people. And what's happening to it right now, here in the first week and a half of 2025, is tragic with these wildfires caused by these 100-mile-per-hour winds. We wish all the people there our best. Our heart goes out to them. And then I also love to say, if you are listening to this in the future, say 2026, 2027, or further in the future than that, hey, write to us at Double PHQ and tell us how cool the rebuilding and the reemergence of this great community is from the future. Because right now, it is suffering.
Bubba, we need to have some more fun.
Yes.
What's going on? So I decided to add a bonus game.
A bonus game?
Yeah.
Is that on the agenda somewhere?
We'll see. It was in there, but you forgot to read it. And I'm going to call this bonus game the Double S.
The Double S?
That is the Silo Slam.
Oh, no.
We have heard some great mic drops, some great dishes in the last couple episodes. So hopefully that'll keep going, and people will keep verbally knocking people aside the head, taking care of fools. I've got 2 nominations for this week's Silo Slam. The first one is Billings comes to Shirley. He's like, all right, I'm on your side now. Forget the pact. I'm going to help out. And Shirley says, I didn't realize there was nothing you can actually do.
Oh, thank you, Shirley. Billings is giving this heartfelt, very long coming clean, cleansing of his soul.
Yeah.
And Shirley Silo slamming him with that. Loved it. Oh, it's going to be tough to top that. That is pretty good.
All right, well, here's my other nomination. Lukas trying to get to the bottom. I've got to save the silo. He's telling everybody, I got to save the silo.
Of course.
So he manages to bully his way through. And then at one point, Amundsen's like, no, you're not going anywhere. And Lukas is like, listen, see, everyone's life in this silo depends on me getting to the bottom. And Amundsen says, of course. You don't understand. Your life depends on you letting go of my arm.
Ooh, mic drop, Silo Slam goodness. You know why I'm an Amundsen anon is because of Double S is just like that.
All right. So you're picking that one. I'm picking Shirley because I love it. We've had Billings to be or not to be with justice for quite a long time. And finally he comes clean, and Shirley's like, you're completely useless to me.
Well, you got the syndrome back from being Silo slapped.
The Silo Shirley Slam.
Oh, it's so good.
All right, Bubba.
Yeah.
All right, we've had enough of foolishness. Now it's time to it's time to get to the recap where we have to seriously document what happened in this episode for people who are listening because they just saw it and they can't remember.
Catfish, I'm glad you said that to prove that we've been doing this over 10 years and you still don't understand the point of this damn podcast. The point of this podcast, Catfish, is we're like friends talking with our listener friend about this great show. And the reason we do the recap isn't to explain to them what happened. Yes, they know, but we do it kind of to make sure we don't forget a point they would want to talk about. Like,
that's good, Bubba, because you missed one that I added later on that I thought was important.
Okay, then. Oh my goodness gracious! I'm about to silo slap your stupid. I've been doing this 11 years with this moron.
Everybody's got a role to play, Bubba. I just play mine perfectly.
Oh my gosh! Here we go. All right.
Well, Bubba, we usually ask me what I want to talk about, and I go from lowest to greatest interest. So even though a lot happened there this week, as I said, there were reasons that they couldn't get me to care about it. So I'd like to go through Silo 17.
All righty. Well, the first thing they've got to do is you, Catfish, I'm always revealed too much. You auditioned to be on the television show Lost. You were very close to being on the television show Lost. And doesn't this little flashback feel like, hey, this is how we're going to introduce to you these characters you've kind of always heard about, and this is their backstory. So it's a flashback to establish these kids and where they've been all season. We've been in Silo 17 all season. We haven't really seen them. This is where they were. So the kids, they must live on a high floor because when Juliette came in, she ran below them to get off her suit and to escape that dangerous, toxic world upside. And when they see her, it's go time. They say, watch her and let's check our weapons. If these kids have pretty much been alone their whole lives, yes, they had parents who died when they tried to infiltrate the vault there, but they've been alone for years. And so a new person showing up, that would freak them the hell out.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I don't know if they'd be murderous to do the things they do. Like they cut Juliette's rope. Like, dang, that is pretty brutal. But you would be nervous and you would freak out. You'd even freak out hearing Moon River like they did when Solo played it for Juliette. Yeah.
They're not exactly happy with all the people that are with them. They do not want another eater on their hands.
Right. Maybe that's what they thought. Boy, this person will eat even more. We're barely growing enough. And they refer to Solo as the killer. I'm tough on these showrunners a bit, but I think this is maybe a bit fun to do it because as an audience, the show has painted Solo as somebody who's borderline schizophrenic, whose personality flips. And if they're painting Solo as the killer, maybe as an audience member, you're really thinking, okay, maybe Solo is a real violent person. So what did you think about that, or is it still so dark you really couldn't even comprehend what was happening?
Not to beat a dead horse here, but that would have been helpful.
Beat a dead silo.
That would have been helpful earlier, so I could have thought about it more. This all happened so fast that it doesn't really give time for me to percolate and start thinking about more complex things. I never bought Solo as psychotic. I just bought him as, my understanding was he was pretty much left alone when he was a kid, and so he had no one to sort of guide him. So that was like kind of like a childish tantrum. So I never got scared about Silo.
About Solo when he would have his outburst. Okay. The impression you were given ended up being the right impression, so that's good. It turns out, Juliette's doing her dive, cutting off the oxygen and cutting the rope that she was going to use to pull herself back up, or the elevator that was going to pull her back up. That turned out to be convenient for the show's sake, accidents, because, again, they were really just attacking Solo when those things happened. But Rick, the oldest child, you would assume, maybe, the boy in the group, he says, if he's dead, meaning Solo, he can't give us food. And so even though they've attacked him, and Audrey is filled with bloodlust, she is as angry as Juliette gets at this time, Rick is able to get an agreement with her. Hey, we'll keep him our prisoner. If he doesn't give us food, then we'll Then we'll kill him. Now, Eater, what did you think of Eater? Let's even talk about her, because it felt like she was the one we met the most. Eater is put out as bait. She's put out to play possum to get Juliette to come up to her and then attack her. And we really get to know this poor girl, this girl who had a mother after the revolution and after the silo pretty much died. She and her mother were there. Her mother dies. She gets adopted into the new family. And rather than even treating her as a person, they see her as another mouth to feed and kind of treat her poorly. Any thoughts on Eater?
I liked her a lot. I would say keep her and kill the other ones.
Look at you. Okay. Juliette Jr., Audrey here, she is laying the smackdown because we cut to where we are, the present timeline, as it will. Rick, he says, you want to talk to Solo? Get food from the vault. Juliette's honest. She doesn't know the code. And Audrey says, I just fed my baby. When my baby cries again, Solo dies.
I love it.
Is some nice exposition for us, the audience, to say, okay, who's the mother of this infant we saw earlier? Audrey is like the anti-Eater. Where poor Eater has had, they've all had terribly difficult lives. But Audrey is a take no prisoners, don't even ask questions, kill now. Dang. Eater, because she's so outcast, gets, almost follows Juliette on her own. This is the part of me about Juliette's character that the show has made that it just never connects with me. Eater is out here saying so much. Juliette here's another person who's lived in a dead silo. Juliette asks 0 questions, has 0 care. Like, Eater has to say things like, you know why they call me Eater? Eater is monologuing to her. Juliette is so mono-focused on, I got to get my suit, or I got to solve this code, that it's really crazy that later in the episode, Juliette comes and says, oh, you know what? I was listening to some of your stuff earlier, Solo.
Well, that's because the Juliette, Bubba, there's no one like her.
This is a true tragedy. And let's get to the death of their parents. So their parents are possibly the only adults left in the silo. We don't know if other people are, in pockets of this silo, if other people have claimed floors. Like I said, they seem to have claimed one of the top floors in the silo. But their parents, they're trying to break into the vault. Solo's not going to let anybody into the vault. So every day they've got 3 options. They try to come up with a code. And literally, I can't do the math, but how many years did it take them to solve what the code was? They finally get in while Solo's sleeping. They take his gun and they shoot him. Whoa. Then he panics and he locks them in and they suffocate. And that's how Solo became the killer. Oh, tragedy. Oh my God. How sad. How sad. I mean, this is sad on both sides. Eater's mom, didn't even, quote unquote, she didn't know her last name. I mean, this is some brutal stuff.
This is stuff that they did lay seed much earlier in the season. What happened to
Solo? Yeah.
But
still seeing Solo be a little kid looking through that little tiny window in the door as the rebels, including the sheriff, someone of authority, holds a gun to his dad's head and says, open the door or I'll kill your dad. And then he does kill his dad. Holy smokes. So good. So crazy. So what the hell? It's just an episode that we're learning all this story. Like you said, they've kind of hit us over the head that Solo was a kid when this revolution happened. But holy smokes. And then it has this almost sweet ending. They come to an agreement. And if Audrey's still angry about her parents being killed, she's like, well, okay, my parents shot you. I guess I'll stop being angry. Solo lets everybody into the vault, into the algorithm room, and into the legacy. And it's wonderfully decorated like a 12-year-old who's lived there for, who knows how many years. It looks lived in. That is wonderful. That is brilliant. Solo offers them ice cream. And what's so funny is he did that. And I thought, how are these kids going to know what the hell ice cream is? And then they say they don't even know what music is. This is a.
But then he doesn't even play them any music. He plays the Monster Mash. Come on.
How dare you? Dare you? You've got, the legacy. Didn't Bernard tell Lukas, hey, this is all the world's treasures? Play the most important treasure. That is the first treasure.
The Mississippi Squirrel Revival. Let's have that.
No. Listen, I was working in the silo late one night when I saw the founders had an evil fright. He did the mash. He did the silo mash. I loved it. And I wish it had happened sooner. In an earlier podcast, I said, how fun would it be if we could see Solo and Juliette solving problems together? Here, we went through 9 episodes, but here, if they're not friends, at least they're not enemies anymore. Chef's kiss. I loved it. Did your heart warm, Catfish, 7 out of 10, when, the hand was on the shoulder and it was like, yeah, I got you. I made you dive and risk your life and get shot with an arrow, but we're past that now, right? Did you love that cold-hearted Catfish? Catfish, your audio is not working. Is your mic muted?
I'm sorry.
You muted your mic.
No,
so
I've said enough.
Tell...
I've said enough about Solo.
Whoa. You are very excited to get out of Silo 17.
So excited.
We've got one more episode in season 2. How frustrated would you be if Juliette ends up not leaving and spends the whole season there? I mean, there's a baby there. She's just going to leave this baby alone and be like, later, kids. Here's Uncle Solo. He'll take care of you. Are you going to be okay if she splits?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, she keeps saying, I've got to do this. I've got to do this. So we've already gotten the sense of like she's weighing 10,000 lives versus 1 life, and now 5 lives.
Right.
So I mean,
Solo makes 6. Right.
Okay. Yeah. Solo makes 6. It would be odd for her to not be like, I've got this now. I've got the suit. I gotta get over there.
Well, here's a question I've seen people posting online. There are now 2 suits, right? She has the fireman suit and the helmet, and then she's got Solo's suit. Is it possible Solo would go with her to Silo 18? Is it possible Eater, who said in this episode, man, I want to get out of here? Is it possible she'll bring back a friend with her?
Now that would be, I think, the best way for her to prove her story is to bring somebody that no one has seen before. So I think that would be brilliant. And yeah, take one more mouth away from the silo. Now, Silo 17. But you know what? Once the kids have ice cream, can you keep them down on the farm / Silo 17?
They're not going.
Juliette's got to be like, "Oh, you think this silo's great? Come to mine."
Sit on Uncle Bernard's lap as he reads from the pact, all the good of the founders. Oh, listeners, Catfish is down on Silo 17. I have already said how I think they could have made this storyline better, but I really liked the ending of this. I like Juliette and Solo being on the same team now. Tell us your thoughts on all social media platforms. If you can tell us on TikTok, I just signed up. I have no idea, but let us know. If there's a way you can tell us, hey, morons, I actually really love Silo 17 on TikTok.
Oh, good.
Do it to us. Do it to us in like a meme way on TikTok.
My favorite moment, and obviously, is from the Lukas storyline, but I think the most moving parts, and therefore my favorite part, is the down deep. So I'd rather do Lukas next and then save the down deep for last. Unless you just want to flip it, because then we end where the episode ends. No.
Let's get to it, because I think what's funny is I bet a lot of people actually start talking about the ending first because it's so powerful and so strong. So I'm with you. Let's get to Lukas's hunt to decode Salvador Quinn's message and get to some sort of truth. We start this episode. We knew in the last episode that it began with, the game is rigged. We think we're the chosen ones, but now we get a bit further. We think we're the chosen ones, but we're just one of many. The founders didn't build a single silo. They built 50, and they created this safeguard. Whoa. Now, Bernard, being awesome Bernard, that makes all the Bernard bros excited. Lukas reads him this, and then Bernard has to, actually him by saying, technically 51. Lukas says why. Now, this is going to be our judicial debate later in the podcast.
Okay.
But Bernard, when Lukas says, well, why did they build, in the end, 51 silos? Bernard says, good question. I don't know. So our judicial debate later is going to be, is Bernard telling the truth?
All right. Well, I want to ask you another question right now. The funny thing is, do you feel that people in the present silo, obviously, they've erased a lot of history. Mm-hmm. And the history before, I think, I don't want to lead you, but it's funny when you say, what Salvador Quinn says, okay, we're the chosen ones. It feels like that kind of feeling and that history and, you know, that part of it is gone. I don't feel like the present silo people feel like they are chosen, they are special. This is just their life, right? They're not imbued with that, with the purpose and the knowledge of them.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you're exactly right. The silo that we've seen through now 19 episodes, it's never felt like these people are like, we're the chosen ones on a sacred quest to, you know, live in the silo and have this heaven, this heaven of the silo. It has
heaven
not felt
under
like
earth.
heaven under earth. Exactly. So I haven't felt that, but, you know, Salvador Quinn did a lot of things. Maybe that's one of the things that his revolution got rid of, is that.
I feel like that was what was wiped out along with the history was.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Whatever propaganda was being presented to try and keep people happy. I mean, in a way, they definitely were chosen, you know.
Yeah.
You can't fit that many people in 50 or 51 silos.
Yep. Let's continue and say that Lukas, he did a really smart thing to stretch the episode and have it longer than 60 minutes.
Okay.
He decides to decode it during the episode as opposed to doing it off screen between episodes.
Oh, okay. Got it.
He's like, hey, Bernard, come in and let me tell you what I've decoded. Have you decoded the whole message? No, just this bit. Ugh, I wanted to decode the rest during the runtime. So, okay. So, you know, later we cut to him and it feels like he has decoded the whole thing, but we don't get to know the whole thing. We just see, you know, somewhere at the bottom of this message, we see ... join in progress, them writing, reason be damned. If you don't believe me, go to the very bottom of the silo, find the tunnel. You will get confirmation there. Oh, snap. Salvador Quinn knows about that tunnel at the bottom of the silo that I think we as an audience have known about since season 1, episode 1. It feels like, wow.
Right. And that is delicious.
Now, Lukas, he had his moment with Amundsen. Is there anything else you want to say about Amundsen being perfect?
Well, you know, I'm going to steal your thunder here because you noted it yourself. If Lukas is Bernard's shadow, unless Amundsen knows the way Sims does that Lukas is not long for this world, right. He could be potentially threatening his future boss. So, you know, Amundsen, he might eventually be picking up some mining skills.
Right. That's what I would think. Like Amundsen, you know, say what you want to, but this guy currently is your boss's number 2. Why would you insult him so much? But Amundsen, he was mean for a bit. And then he comes around and says, hey, buddy, I was told not to disturb Bernard until, you know, during the day. Amundsen, the true hero of the show, the true protagonist. Because unlike Juliette, he stayed in Silo 18 to protect the silo. He's the chosen one.
You know what? I'm so glad, Bubba, that your idolization of Amundsen, I can't remember what I called it last week. You were an Amundsen. You came up with some stupid Amundsen anon, but I came up with something better. But I've forgotten.
Amundsen acolyte?
Yeah, Amundsen acolyte. Amundsen adorer. I might have come up with that. I'm glad that you're still with your guy after I've fallen off the Bernard bro bandwagon this week.
Now, how about this? Once again, we want to get to the thrilling moment at the end. There was a bit of not thrilling, but what the hell are we seeing when the show cut to Lukas's mom in the thing? I was like, what are we seeing? What's going on? And then it's later revealed, oh, this is Lukas's mom, she's been referred to multiple times, and he's giving his mom the pack. Now, the Salvador Quinn pack. This we know is very dangerous. Would you give something dangerous to somebody like your mom because you can trust her? or would you not give it to your mom because it could put your mom in big danger? Thoughts, Catfish?
Well, you know what he does say, what's led me here is being a coward. And I think maybe he feels like he got that from his mom. So he's like, here, I'm going to make you not a coward. I'm going to make you, I'm going to make you anti the silo. I'm sure this is going to pay off later, but even when I found out it was his mom, I was still confused why this scene.
Hey, now. All right, let's put our silo speculation hat on. Lukas doesn't have the Salvador Quinn pact anymore. Is there any way Bernard could get it? Are those cameras still up? And maybe let's just jump to the end. Lukas is told not to talk about, what he found down at the bottom door, or something bad's going to happen is the impression. Is he going to tell his boss Bernard, or does he not? The judge didn't. Mary Meadows was at that door and she didn't. So does Bernard need a way to find out what Lukas found out, and they leave the pack behind because Bernard could find it and then decode the thing for himself?
Oh man, well, that's such a good loophole for Lukas. He tells the disembodied voice, I didn't say anything. I didn't say, look, Bernard figured it out on his own. Put my mom in a jail cell and took the pact from her.
So let's just jump there. Obviously, Lukas has some trouble at the border between the upper and mids and the down deep. He gets through mainly by appealing to Shirley by saying, hey, I knew Juliette. Shirley gets him there and then leaves. That was so cold. She'll be like, hey, you'll drown. See ya. But he gets to the bottom of that water. And it turns out, it's about waist deep, this water. And to me, if the water really has always been only about waist deep, how have only 3 people in the hundreds of years this silo, possibly thousands of years this silo's been around, how can only 3 people have reached this door at the bottom of the silo? That seems not believable, but either way, let's get into the thrilling part of it. Yes. He goes into the tunnel. The soundtrack is doing a great job on this. He goes into the tunnel. The lights light up. Whoa. And then if you have the closed caption on, you realize this is the voice of the thing we met a couple episodes ago, the algorithm. The algorithm stops him. 3 people have gotten to this point. Salvador Quinn, Mary Meadows, who we know is Judge Meadows, and of course, Juliette's ex, George. The algorithm didn't talk to George, but it did talk to the other 2. And they said, you tell anybody about this discovery, this safeguard will activate. Ouch! This moment was so thrilling, so wonderful, so as I think it was one of our listeners said, moments like this are why we watch this show. It was entirely successful. This moment was a 10 out of 10 for me. It was brilliant. It was thrilling. It gets you wondering what the safeguard is. It gets you wondering some of the questions I had earlier. You can't tell somebody not to tell somebody, right? Like what's the one thing say? Whatever you do, keep this a secret. Now, we don't know what the safeguard is, but it sounds horrific based on what Lukas's face was and what it did to Judge Meadows. She became an alcoholic because of it. So any guesses, Catfish, what the safeguard is?
I'm going to tie this into earlier because this is the only way this makes sense to me.
Sure.
Is that Bernard is saying that if people find out the truth, it could be worse than the rebellion. And as we know, in one rebellion, pretty much the whole silo died. So what could be worse than that? What could be worse than that is if they find out the truth and they affect other silos, right? That's the only thing that could be worse than everyone in one silo dying. It could be people in other silos dying. So maybe that safeguard is like, if you get to this point or whatever, it shuts down that silo, but that's still that silo just losing that silo. So I still don't have an answer why this is worse, how the safeguard is worse, even if Bernard knows about it. And it seems like he doesn't, but somehow he has the knowledge that this could be worse than everybody in Silo 18 dying. So
I'm gonna do your statement spun my mind off in a different direction.
I like it.
And one of the different directions I suddenly started thinking about is, you're like, what would be a safeguard? A safeguard could be something like, you guys will never be able to reproduce. Like, hey, we're gonna poison your water. that's going to stop you from, yes, you may live, but your silo won't continue on, because just like they wouldn't let, certain parents, like Holston's wife, Allison, they wouldn't let her reproduce. This is almost, that's one way that's not, I don't want to say a fate worse than death, but you know what I mean? It's like a safeguard. The safeguard in that sense was, we're only going to let the right people breed. And so that's one possible safeguard. The second thing I thought, if you're living in this silo, and again, we don't know their religious beliefs and what they're taught and if they think they're the chosen people or not, but this idea that this superpowered overlord controls your entire silo. Right now, you and I and everybody listening to this think they have complete free will, right? And free destiny. And this is a voice, the algorithm saying, guess what? You don't.
I mean, I disagree, because they're stuck. They're stuck where they are. They don't have freedom of movement. Again, you're right.
We don't have freedom of movement in the galaxy. We have freedom of movement here. Like, there is nobody in your life right now that I know of who could come in and say, Catfish, if you don't do this the way that I approve of, no mo Catfish, outside of Mrs. Catfish. So, right. So wouldn't that be like a holy smokes? This thing, the algorithm gets to thumbs up and thumbs down. I mean, let's talk about this. We learn all sorts of crazy stuff in this. I'm going to jump to the Sims story for a bit. Remember, Sims tells his wife, "Hey, there's this key," and when Holston picked Juliette to be his sheriff, and they went down to talk to her, Bernard went into the server room. Came back out, he says, I have to be mayor. The way that reads to me is that he went into the server room, the algorithm said, guess what? If Mayor Johns allows Juliette to be sheriff, we can't have Mayor Johns no more, you have to be mayor. Like, what if the algorithm is really making decisions like that? And so many of these things we give Bernard credit for, what if at times when that little red 18 flashes, that's the algorithm saying, it's my way or the highway?
That makes...
that would be so crazy. That would drive you to drink.
I mean,
and I don't need a great reason to drive.
I guess
my team loses. I drink.
I guess I can see that. That makes sense if you're going to set up this thing that you don't know how long people are going to have to stay underground, and you get to the point where you think you have an AI that can figure out how to sustain the silos, that you would let it make the decisions. That makes sense. But we don't really know, like you say, we don't know what their religion is. We don't know what they think. We don't know, like, in general, I guess we just
nobody in the silo except Bernard in the Judge Meadows before the series began knew that there was this thing, algorithm, that could come in and say, do this, do that. We show everybody it's toxic outside, but just in case people don't believe us, we'll occasionally send people out to clean, and then they'll get it. Hey, guess what? It is toxic outside. You'll die. And so that is one bit of knowledge that everybody has. Hey, it's toxic outside. You go outside, you're going to die real quick. We talk about why not tell everybody the truth. Could you tell everybody, hey, guess what? There is a possible AI overlord that says who gets to live and be mayor, and if they go wrong, they may or no more. I mean, would you tell people that?
It's the algorithm that's deciding whether you can have a kid or not. Because you would have to assume the algorithm is deciding that.
Right. Would people want to know that? Like, would people not go insane and rebel if they knew that? They probably would know that.
Okay, but I don't understand. But what I don't understand.
And this is me speculating. People,
right.
I want to make sure people don't think I'm bringing book knowledge into this. So,
got it. What I don't understand, and this was going to be a Catfish question, but we're here. What I don't understand is how even that would make it worse than a rebellion. I guess the rebellions that Bernard knows about didn't kill everybody in the silo. Right. We only know about that from Silo 17. So he only knows his rebellions, which they've survived. They survived it even when it was happening every generation.
How about this, too? A rebellion, you would assume maybe 20% join, 30% join, half the silo join. You would think not everybody would join. But maybe if everybody knew, hey, guess what? This I keep calling it an AI. I have no idea what it is, but this thing decides if you get to have kids or not. It might suddenly be everybody joining, and that might be why.
Right. But your rebellion would not be, yeah. So that's right. So then your rebellion would be not necessarily going outside, but trying to self-determine your life, and then that becomes chaos.
Yeah, let's go. I mean, boy, we are being so serious for us. So let's go even further.
Mm-hmm.
What if Chat GPT said, Catfish, you must have kids? That's Chat GPT telling you that.
I'd say good luck.
It'd probably rewrite that to say Catfish agrees. Okay, boy, listeners, this is why is this moment so great? All this speculation we just did. The show makes you sit up, makes you go, what's going on? Then it sends your mind off into so many crazy directions. Did you love that? Are you having these crazy thoughts that we have? Or are you like Catfish? I couldn't see it. Turn up the damn brightness, show.
No,
algorithm, turn some lights on.
It's fine in Silo 18. Oh my God. All right, Bubba. Let's go now to where not all the action, a third of the action is happening, but we're getting people from different groups together, and that is always exciting. So we got the down deep hunt for the traitors with Billings, and we're going to mix in a little bit of Sims for you there.
Okay, here we go. Paul is crying. He did a bad thing. He didn't tell his wife about this page he ripped out. Kathleen, his wife, asks a question that everybody is asking. She really, in the end, needs to ask the algorithm. So she's like, Paul, why is it illegal for us to have this? And she has had enough. You know, what's so funny is in the past season, I felt like she was the one saying, Paul, be on the straight and narrow, Paul, be on the straight and narrow. And this season, to me, if anybody in Silo 18 was going to pop open the door to the silo, I think it's her.
Yeah,
especially after her scene with Patrick Kennedy later. Paul is saying all the things about himself to the Down Deepers that we already know. He's like, I'm a patsy. They picked me not because I'm a good cop, just because I shut up and follow orders and all this stuff. And then he ends it by saying, they misjudged me. And in the show notes I wrote, really? I mean, it took you a pretty long time to realize this about yourself there, Billings. And as you said, the silo slam from Shirley, chef's kiss.
Now, when Kathleen is patching up Patrick Kennedy, this is where we get to it. One of the things I said, why couldn't we have had this earlier? Now we get to the point, the display is a lie. So now we have a seed that is going to grow an entire forest of rebellion. We hope.
Catfish, I'm just gonna get to it and say again, it's just so frustrating. Patrick Kennedy is like, hey, where were you when where were you when this happened? And it's like none of our characters and seemingly no randos say, I was at my computer screen and I saw this image pop up of an outside beautiful green world. They needed somebody to say it. If that happened, if this is 10,000 people, let's say 10 of the 10,000 happened to see it were by a computer screen and saw that talk would be spreading like wildfire, and it isn't. And it's everybody like, were you near? Did you see this? No. Did you see this? No. It's almost like, remember, was it just episode 2 of season 1 where it was episode 3, I think, where they did the power outage and they're like, oh my God. And a flash of the green world appeared on the big cafeteria screens, and somehow nobody saw that and nobody ever mentioned it. It is crazy.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. We should have had something built on another. First of all, it was all the Juliette graffiti, and then it should have been this information circulating throughout the silo. And what would have been even greater is if this circulated, since there's no video of it, if it circulated and the tales got wilder and wilder somehow, and that would really get everybody more juiced up, and we wouldn't have had a revolution stalemate for 5 episodes.
100%.
Or 9 episodes.
Yes. I jokingly because other episodes, not this one I love, but every other episode's frustrated me. So I always call these side quests of the week. This week,
prepare for war.
Right.
In about 8 episodes.
This week, it's find traitor number 2. So we found the woman who poisoned the food. Now we got to find the next traitor. Hanks is pitching, hey, why don't, or somebody pitches, I think it was Hank, said, hey, would the other deputies support us? And I think that's a wonderful question. And so they sneak a message out, we later find out. And then Knox mentions to the deputies, like, the reason why I'm not in a judicial raider prison is because Camille Sims let us go free. This is all so good. Knox, let's just talk about him. He goes to see Walker, and she's lying. And is it a good lie? Like, if you're Walker, if you're Knox, would you ever suspect Walker? Because she's saying all the right things. She's like, I love my wife. I've got to get her back. She's saying her agoraphobia is kicking back up. And so
those are two kind of contradictory things, but you can believe them independently of each other. Mm-hmm. You could sort of buy them together, but like it's one of two things. Either, you know what I mean? Like she is, somebody smart, and certainly Knox looks very beefy.
Strong.
He's got a good cut. But up until he outfoxed Bernard, I didn't think that he was the sharpest dude.
No.
But eventually you got to put it together. If Walker has stopped complaining about somebody needs to go get her, and she's staying in her place.
Now, but Bernard is listening to this wonderful, get back on the Bernard bro train. I'm not a Bernard bro. You are, but I'm like, Bernard is doing good blackmailing. I love it.
But Knox did forget one thing. The first rule of a revolution is don't tell traitors your plans for the revolution.
Now, did you love that as soon as Knox leaves, who's sliding into her DMs? It's Bernard, baby, man. Keep betraying everyone.
I don't know why she's so offensive. She's like, well, you heard it. I haven't been out of here. He's like,
right.
She should be like, listen, get my girl down here now. You got all the info.
Down deep, Bernard looks at him and he's like, more like dumb deep. Oh, man. So Bernard, now that he knows this is one thing that is maybe a bit odd. Bernard keeps talking about how, Lukas, your thing is more important than, bigger than the revolution. Yet he spends this entire episode on the rebellion. So it's like, you new guy.
He doesn't leave a message. He doesn't leave a message not to be disturbed unless it's Lukas.
Right. But instead, he's still got to do his PR stunt. He brings all the deputies together and he tells them that, hey, that gunpowder that's missing and all the violence, Paul Billings came up with the plan. Now, the deputies, do you think anybody believes this? Certainly Secretary Sandy is seeing through this BS, and that's Bernard stuff for all you kids listening. So
I didn't know whether they saw through it or it was just pure laziness, because they're like, hey, listen, I was told this is not my job description.
All right, so we cut back to the sheriff's station in the Down Deep. And what I love is we've seen Hank do actually zero work trying to find who the traitor is, who the mole is. We've seen him do nothing, and we cut to him, and it's him saying the line, I got no idea who it could be. Good work, Hank. By not doing anything and just giving up. Now, Billings, as we find out, has sent a message up top, and he's got a response, so he leaves. Somehow Knox puts it 2 and 2 together, Catfish. This was not my Hank. I'm on the Hank Heroes team. Hank didn't get it. It was Knox. He goes back to Walker.
Yes.
And he blames Teddy's mom. This is so good. Yes. This is so good.
Once again, this is a great kind of mirroring, right? Because we saw Bernard sit back in his seat and smile last episode. And this week he sits back in his seat and smiles again, but this time he is being duped.
I love it.
Oh,
so good.
Bernard, come back to me.
How about this? Does Walker, because Knox was really kind of staring in her eyes, really almost trying to will her to get it. Did Walker get it? Did Walker understand? We know it's you, but we're not going to say it out loud.
Yeah, he does gild the lily a bit, and this is
Mhm.
why I'm upset with
Oh, no.
previously brilliant Bernard falling for this, because Knox
Okay.
is like, we can't blame her because she does things because she loves somebody.
Yes.
And he practically said, and they're in jail, and they're
Teddy is in
wink,
jail.
wink, and they're
Right.
friends of yours. He's like winking and blinking.
Who could it be but Teddy's
Bernard,
mom?
bumbling, formerly brilliant Bernard, now bumbling Bernard. Oh my goodness.
Okay, well, let's go through the teams real quick,
Let's
Catfish.
do it.
With Bernard slipping, does that
Hmm.
mean you're going to become an Amundsen Anon?
No, no, I will
How about
never
this?
be an Amundsen adorer.
You have always been very tough on Walker.
Mhm.
Now, sometimes that comes across like you're being a snarky jerk, and other times you're a snarky jerk. So which is it? Hating on Walker, feeling sorry for her? How do you feel about Walker after this episode?
Well, you know what? I need to apologize because, before I said I didn't like the way this character was being played. I thought it was a little too one note. But Bubba, this was so textured and brilliant,
Yeah.
the way this performance was done, that I was able to pick up. The reason why I didn't like her was because there's some small part of her that made me realize that she was weak and a coward and a betrayer. So this is why I never liked her, because all along I knew she had this in her. Walker.
Reject Catfish's evilness, people. Now, one people you love is Sims. So look who it is. Billings goes up, and who's at the barricade? Sims. He's like, I walked 100 floors down this. Sims, who's judge, remember, but Amundsen didn't really listen to, but the judicial raiders at the barricade, when Sims gives them the look of like, hey, get out of here, give me some privacy, which I give Sims credit. He's like, you want privacy in the middle of a war, in the middle of a silo? Yeah, okay. I thought that was hilarious. The judicial raiders at the barricade did listen to Sims. Sims starts calling Billings out, and Billings, he's just got to tell everybody he's had this awakening. He's saying, I didn't go anywhere. The line moved. And Sims passes along what I like to call a red level relic.
Oh, red level relic. Not a yellow level relic?
Let's do it again. Red level relic, yellow level relic, yellow level relic.
Yellow level relic.
It's hard to say, people. Billings, he knows, because Knox told him that, hey, Camille Sims saved us, and he is really putting his faith. He is putting his faith in Robert Sims.
Yeah, but he's smart enough to really be putting his faith in Camille Sims.
What about Sims Jr.? What if he?
No,
I want to see your
Camille's
kid.
the entire brains behind the operation, and so this is exciting because
this
basically
is exciting.
It's kind of Billings essentially says smartly the same kind of thing that Camille had said to Robert Sims, which is like, okay, there's the rules, and then there's the safety of the silo. Do we really know that Bernard knows what he's doing for the safety of the silo? And we know he does, because he's not making the decisions. ChatGPT is.
Am I reading the scene correctly? The Sims have chosen a side, and it's not Bernard's side, right? If the rebels win, she's telling him they're going to need a leader, and they're going to look to you, Rob. Now, is that just shining him up?
I mean, no. I feel like Camille.
He's the judge.
Camille has been behind this all the way. She was, she was playing with fire by, having the signs and everything. She's been weakening the judge, and so this is like the perfect thing for her to get the down deepers along with her too. And she doesn't mind being Lady Macbeth. She can have all the power, and then put Robert out there. And if anybody aims for the king, you don't have to miss.
Well, when you talk about playing with fire, Sim saying, hey, maybe I can get that key from Bernard, that to me really seems like playing with fire. That seems dangerous. That seems like, oh boy. Any idea what you think Billings wants Camille Sims to do?
I mean, I think that that he probably wants her to depose Bernard. Let's stop this. Although, it's weird because this really hasn't been fomented by Bernard.
Right,
When you think about this logically, I mean, sure, it was fomented because he was the one who sent Juliette out, even though she didn't want to go out, but he didn't have her go over the hill. He didn't have people get an uproar over Juliette. All he's doing is to try to, keep things down by ratcheting up the tension.
That's the way you do it. Again, I think what we learned in the Lukas scene is that possibly the algorithm is doing all this stuff. Bernard could be doing it because he feels like that is the best for the silo. He's, like, hey, this thing knows best. The pack knows best. The Order, remember, he has a book called The Order, It Knows Best.
Right, but if
if you were Bernard, and you were on trial, is it enough to say I was following orders? I was following the order. I was following the algorithm.
Yeah, I don't think there's any trial in Bernard's future. This is more like Sims knows and Billings suspects and has been told that Bernard bumped off the judge and is doing things that are seemingly reckless.
Let's go in another bit of silo speculation, because it feels like we're at the end of these great 3 storylines. If something did happen to Bernard, what's funny is I actually think I'm suddenly thinking of all sorts of drama, Game of Thrones, spoiler for that show. But if a leader was killed or deposed, it created so much drama as people try to fill that vacuum. If Bernard suddenly was taken out evilly by evil Sims, would everyone suddenly say, okay, well, Lukas, he was Bernard's shadow? Or would it be true pandemonium and insanity of, I think this person should be the leader. I think I should be the leader. Like, to be honest, that sounds like great, terrible drama. But
here's the thing, right? Let's just say the up-toppers just want stability. Yeah, and the people down below don't want to be cut off from the rest of the silo, don't want to be blamed for the judge's death. So the idea is, it's like, if we're okay with Camille and Camille or Sims takes over, then we back off and we just make peace again. It seems like everybody would be cool with that.
That's interesting.
So the question is, how set in stone is everyone's understanding of, like, okay, this was this person's shadow, so they must take over. And in that case, how many people know that Lukas is Sim's shadow? I mean, basically, you have.
There was not an announcement.
You just have to buy off your boy Amundsen. Make him the head of Judicial, make him the judge, whatever, or give him something that actually has power instead of being the judge. Maybe the mayor. No,
there you go.
No, Camille or Sims has to be the mayor, I think. Put him in charge of IT.
Listeners,
whoever really is in charge here. I guess it's just IT, right?
The algorithm. Put him as the algorithm.
Got it.
Hey, listeners, I think this was a successful 9 out of 10 episode. But again, who cares what I think? We want to know what you think. The show and the storyline is making us think, well, what about this? What about this? I hope that you're having those same type of thoughts and you'll share them with us. If you're on YouTube, go down in the YouTube comments, leave us a comment, social media, TikTok, tell us, because this is why we all signed up for this show. I think these fun moments, these fun ideas, these fun what the hell is going on sections that we get to. Catfish, are you ready for the judicial debate?
Let's do it. All right.
In this debate, we have prosecutor Catfish. Now, we saw in the episode that Bernard said there are technically 51 silos. Lukas asked him why, and Bernard says, good question. I don't know. Do you believe Bernard is telling the truth? Prosecutor Catfish, let's hear your reasoned argument.
Your Honor.
Yes?
As we all know, Bernard is a truth teller of the highest fashion. You may not like that truth, but he will tell you that truth. Your Honor, we got 50 different silos here. 50 is an even number, but all these silos are the same. They run under the same rules. They've got an algorithm leading them. But you know what, Bubba? You got to have one silo to rule them all. One silo where all the decisions are made. So that's the silo that's in the center of it all. So it's technically its own silo, but that's where the algorithm lives, Yana.
But you didn't tell us if Bernard knew that. Does Bernard know why they built these?
Well, no, he know. Is Bernard telling the truth? Is he telling the truth that he doesn't know? Yana, it's so clear that Bernard is just a figurehead at this point for the algorithm. He only gets to know what he's told. That's why he's got Lukas chasing stuff down before he bumps off Lukas after getting all the information.
I have never heard such legal arguments made before the court of law. I'm gonna have to ask the algorithm if any of that made sense. But I think you have convinced me that you don't know the answer. If Bernard is telling the truth or not, the case rests.
All right, Bubba. Hey, listen, this is exciting. We had one last week. We've got another one this week from a listener. We're in the section, the double D's, double Q's.
Double D's, double Q's.
The deeply dumb catfish question. And we've got one from Dainty Brighton who says,
all right.
I've got a crazy catfish question. After 350 years, how is the silo so diverse? Shouldn't everybody be racially ambiguous at this point? And Bubba,
yes.
After I thought about this for a second, I have an answer.
Oh, let's hear it. Okay, sure.
I think normally you would be right, but it's clear that someone is deciding, maybe the algorithm.
Oh, good point.
Who can breed with who, and maybe that is selected to keep the silo as diverse as possible. And so maybe when that's how the algorithm decides who gets to have children or not.
Yeah, Dainty Brighton. I think Catfish got it right, which is a statement I've never said before. So, I don't know any of that stuff. I love to talk about stuff I think I do know about. Your question, Dainty Brighton, I think it's a fine question. I don't have any expertise, and so I say a lot of uninformed things I don't want to say anymore. Catfish, can you top this wonderful question from Dainty Brighton?
I can't, but that's why our listeners are better than we are.
No, for sure.
So here's my deeply dumb question.
Okay.
I can't figure out how the timeline between Solo and the kids works.
All right,
so
let's figure it out.
I'm going to pitch this. So during the revolutions, let's be generous. I'm going to be generous both ones. Let's be generous and say Solo is 15 when the parents die. He looks younger than that, but let's be generous.
Okay, sure.
And let's say the youngest of the kids, also being generous, the youngest is as old as 20.
Yeah.
The parents must have had the kids before they died. So if you say Solo was 15, the youngest kid is 20, that means Solo, the oldest Solo would be 35 and probably more like 30. So the timeline doesn't seem to work between Solo's age and the kids' ages.
You mean the kids, meaning Audrey, Eater, and Rick.
Right. And didn't
so
they
is
say
there
that
any
their
chance
parents died in the revolution and the Solo watched them?
Well, wait a minute. The thing I think is what happened is, once again, let's say 8,000 people go outside the silo,
right?
Die, and then the door shut, and there are 2,000 people somehow alive in the silo. They are trying to build a society post-revolution where their numbers got destroyed. And so they live for a while. They configure the way for the water to drip and the food to grow and stuff. It's just there aren't enough really resources for them, and so they start dying. And so it starts dwindling from 2,000 people down to, the 5 kids there. I think there's a good chance that the Rick, Audrey, certainly Benny, and Eater, there's a good chance that all 4 of them were born after the revolution.
Okay,
by
so
people,
then my
trying to make their way.
My assumption, because things were so dark, then is not correct that from what we were shown in the episode, that Solo watched their parents die.
No, he watched his.
He was a kid.
He watched his dad get shot in the head, and then sometime they didn't show us. Sometime later, their parents, after years of building the code on the chalkboard, found a code that would work. They got into Solo's area, they shot him, they snuck off with food. Then let's say he's 25.
Okay.
Or let's say he's 30, 25. He's been shot. He closes the door behind him. They suffocate Bob.
Okay, all right. Well, then that means that I truly lived up to the segment name, which is a deeply dumb question.
No, I think it's a good dumb question. Your face.
All right. Well, on that note, it's time to go to something that's smart, and that is the quadruple M.
Quadruple M?
That's Matt Murdick's musical analysis. He actually decided to do one this week.
Man, good guy.
For once this season, I am actually interested in talking to you about the music of an episode. Today we're going to be talking to Double S, Solo's Silo theme, and how it has varied over the course of the season. There are three main motifs to Solo's theme, and sometimes they've been used all together, sometimes they've been used separately, but they sound like this. Here's the first one. And the second. And finally the third. Now, the two cuts on the official Season 2 soundtrack that I'm taking these from are called Solo and Ice Cream. And we heard Ice Cream done in its entirety tonight. Fittingly so. That's a great title for that particular scene where he gives them ice cream. But what I love about this particular theme is the ambiguity of it. Because the second to the last note always gives us a different flavor of chord than the note that it resolves to. In the first little motive there, we definitely heard a major third, and then it was followed by a minor third. In the second one, we heard a flat six, which indicates minor, but it resolved to a major third. These are the kinds of things that create an ambiguity that tells us, well, do we really trust Solo or not, especially initially on? And then it was beautifully incorporated in a very special way with the ice cream one. But I just wanted to point that out, that you get set up to thinking you're going dark and you go light, or you get set up to thinking you're light, but then you go dark. A really neat way to show the slight instability of Solo. You know, he's basically the mind of a 12-year-old kid, but he's in the body of a grown man, and this musically represents that kind of ambiguity very well. You can hear all three of those motives in the cut Solo, but it's all done with this kind of dark undertone because it's just when Juliette is meeting Solo way back earlier in the season, and so she doesn't know what's going on with this dude, and he doesn't know what's going on with her, and so it's played a lot darker. But then we get to this episode, and Atlee does something very interesting. He takes kind of the direction of the motives, and he reverses them. Remember in the first one how we started with major, and we resolved to minor? In Ice Cream, he takes the minor, and he resolves it to major. He also adds this playful rhythm underneath, this kind of moving rhythm, which makes things feel a lot less foreboding. It's more like the 12-year-old Solo's world that he's been living in this whole time. And of course, these kids get to explore it all too. And so you need that kind of playful rhythm underneath it. And it sounds like this. Because it's even in a different key, it almost kind of implies to me the theory of negative harmony, which is a very extremely long to explain thing. So I won't go into what that means. But just look it up if you're really interested. And just to point out that we do get Solo's theme in its actual form when he's talking to Juliette about the other suit. And that's all I've got for this time around. Back to Bubba and Catfish.
Thank you, Matt. That is wonderful. And Matt's is actually my second favorite segment, because my favorite segment is feedback, where all our wonderful listeners tell us smart things that we were too dumb to think about. Here's the first one is from our good buddy Hobo Deluxe 007. This isn't even about our podcast or about the show. This is fun insider knowledge.
Love it.
The author of these books, Hugh Howey, he did an AMA on Reddit and answered a few questions, including one of Hobo Deluxe's questions.
Yes.
Now, this might give Bubba a blood vessel bursting, because apparently Hugh Howey, the author, says episode 10 of season 2 will diverge from the books again. Whoa, big time. He didn't name what the title of the 10th episode is, but we do know that the title of the 10th episode is Into the Fire. Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. And Dan Campbell says 17 is also Matt Gates' favorite because the silo is filled with predominantly children.
Oh, man. Yeah, maybe keep Matt Gates and Audrey away from each other. Audrey would kill Matt Gates. Maybe put them together.
Now, Webb Squizza said, it's still bothering me. Where are they pumping the groundwater to? Now, Bub, I had to comment to this because we already answered Webb Squizza's question last week, or in his previous question. They just pump it from silo 17 to 18 to 19, and it just keeps going around in a circle. That's where they're pumping it.
Where will it end? Nobody knows.
It'll end back at silo 18 eventually. They're all connected.
Right, exactly. Hey, yeah. We also got this wonderful, great feedback from Gabziz, who wrote this, because I was asking, well, can't they use the phrase, you get more flies with honey? And I said, well, maybe they don't have honey. Maybe they don't have bees. But Gabby said the silo must have honey because they're pollinating all these plants. They need pollinators like bees. Now, Gabziz, there is something that maybe in the second or third book that you might want to think about, but I like it. Bees, love it.
Yeah, they also could have, I mean, depending on where this happened in the timeline, you assume they have an AI that is actually intelligent, unlike the AIs we have right now.
Chat GPT,
they were able to develop self-pollinating plants.
Right, that's one thing I was thinking. We don't know when this is set, but it's very far in the future. So,
and then we had some comments on the Aeolian scale, which is amazing because Matt refused to talk about it last week, but we got some comments about it.
Oh, good.
R.O. Johnson says the Aeolian scale could be referring to a pin that is given to musicians of worth in the book universe of the King Killer Chronicles.
There we go. Man, Catfish, you and I have read the first 2 books in that series.
Yeah, the only 2 books.
Yeah, okay, all right. And then our good friend, wonderful listener, Reenie6, said I don't even know how to pronounce. How do you say it again?
Aeolian.
Yeah. The Aeolian scale starts on the 6th note of a more typical major scale. It has different intervals, therefore, and it is a minor scale. Wonderful. Thank you for smarting us up. So, Catfish, you created the Bernard Bro team. Mm-hmm. And so we've had people saying, to Bernard Bro or not to Bernard Bro. And Dennis says, listen, to the character Bernard, the ends justifies the means. The mayor Bernard has progressively become more and more Machiavellian with each new machination, making Walker his eyes and ears in the down deep while threatening to torture Carla and not guaranteeing her results has got to be an all-time low, even for a devious POS like Bernard. Heck yeah!
You know, Bubba, some people say all-time low, some people say all-time high.
Well, I love that POS stands for person of silo.
Now, Skeptical Zach, who sent us an email via hello@doublepmedia.com, you can always send us an email there, says Bernard is the silent and never appreciated hero of the story. He alone has the best interests of the silo in mind, keeping what happened to silo 17 from happening in silo 18. Wow. You guys insinuating he was creeping on Meadows when they loved each other all along, and he sacrificed his happiness for the good of the silo. 3 cheers for Bernard. Hip, hip, hooray.
Hooray, hip, hip.
Oh, Skeptical Zach. He's on my base. You know what? I want to know those. Skeptical Zach, are you as disappointed as I am in Bernard this week, being duped by a mechanical? Now, listen, Bubba,
Yeah.
Oh, Patman Spinagle. Patman, we love him on Blue Sky said, unlike Catfish, I'm not a Bernard bro.
What?
But like Catfish, I am 100% a Camille Corman. I hope when Juliette returns, Camille will be Jules' ally, particularly because it would irritate the mayor and Camille is ready to make moves. Speaking of Juliette, I think the pacing in Silo 17 is fine because Silo 18 has a lot going on.
Now, speaking of pacing, everybody knows that I'm referred to as Cranky Bubba. And we got feedback about me being cranky. And here, Catfish, your dog is cranky about me being cranky.
Yeah.
Amy wrote, hey, Bubba, you do not complain too much about the show. The whole point of a show discussion is critical thinking. Say what's on your mind unapologetically. That's what makes this sort of content interesting. Thank you, Amy. Now, Becky, a great follow if you're on Blue Sky. She's Becky3J. Becky E is replaced by a 3J on Blue Sky. She wrote, if Bubba is a grumpy grandpa on the pacing, then I'm an even grumpier grandma. I hated episode 8 due to the pacing. The drama in the book is way better to me than the show. Wow.
Wow. And son Daniel says, Bubba, I'm in your camp due to triple P and double E.
Wait, triple P, double E?
Yeah, pointless pacing problems and editing errors.
Whoa.
Season 1 was better. This show could be great, but it's just good. It shouldn't take episodes for a war, which still hasn't happened.
Mm-hmm.
Turning Walk into a snitch when we already have listeners and snitches in the down deep. Pointless.
Ouch.
That kiss recently, you know the one. Pointless.
Ouch.
8 episodes of Jules Fetch quest going nowhere. Still.
Ouch. Okay, so those are some people who are agreeing with cranky old Bubba here. But Stars and Moon Above says, I like, Bubba, that you keep bringing up the books and all the discrepancies. Now, they haven't read the books, but they find it super interesting. They also think, hey, it's good that the show is different from the books, so everybody has something to theorize about and stay hooked. Well, in this episode, I think there are great theorizing. I agree. And then we have somebody with simply the user handle unknown who wrote, I hope they improve the level of the quality in these last 2 episodes. The series is good, but much less than the books. Thank you for your wonderful podcast. So thank you.
Well, Bubba, you know who that is.
Who?
That's the algorithm.
Oh, thank you,
They're
algorithm.
like, the last 2 episodes are great because I'm in it.
Heck yeah. Now,
the algorithm isn't any less egotistical than any other actor.
Now, the pacing of Silo, it has been something that everybody has been talking about. Bridget Toomey gave us this feedback where Bridget wrote, the writers have tried too hard to keep the timeline of Silo 18 and Silo 17 in line. Therefore, it feels like everything is slow. I think that could be a great point. What do you think about Bridget's point there, Catfish?
Well, I like it, but I also think, that Silo 17 could have been more interesting had we been aware of the kids earlier, as we talked about. Now, Margaret says the difference between season 1 and season 2 is season 1 was a really cool multiple murder mystery with an even bigger mystery of the silo in the background. But season 2 is all build up to a revolution and Juliette returning, but the revolution never happens and Juliette is still hanging out in a dead silo.
Everybody who's had trouble, please write to us and tell us your thoughts. Are you still like Catfish? A bit frustrated with even this episode because it took us so long to get here? Or are you like me? It took us long to get here, but hey, this episode is what we want. Just keep giving it to us. On episode 8, we had, wide range of feedback. Wayne Rogers said he had a tough time watching episode 8 because he kept anticipating or hoping for more action. But Wayne continues, one thing that keeps impressing me is the quality of the acting. Even the characters with small bit parts are well played and very emotive. Wayne, I agree. Any thoughts about the actors, Catfish, outside of one that people are tough on?
No, I think the acting is great in here. Bubba, I'm sorry, I've got to jump to the next one because we have a listener whose name was Yulia Johns, but has changed it to Yulia Major Johns. Yes,
Mayor Johns. Yes.
Mayor Johns, oh, so good. And so, Yulia, thank you so much for changing your username. Julia says, you're the best podcast discussing Silo here. I'm also happy you enjoyed this episode, but I had a very different feelings about it.
Oh, no.
I felt very frustrated about watching it. It felt like we spent 50 minutes going in circles. I can't believe episode 7 ended with someone attacking Solo, and we only found out who it was at the end of episode 8. What the hell was that? Hard agree, Mayor Johns.
A user with the handle Mr. Marvel wrote, he said, I also found it weird that they had Dr. Nichols just chilling in the background with the rebel movement in Walker's office. He was only in mechanical to help with what's his name? That's Patrick Kennedy. Well, does it make sense that he's a friend of Walker and he's had enough of the silo? Mr. Marvel, this is Ian Glenn. They got to give him something to do. He's a good actor. I think it's funny he's chilling now with the rebels, but hey, let's give him something to do, like Catfish always says.
Let's remember two things. One, he's disgusted with the way things are running. Two, now he's hanging out with people who
very true
appreciated and know his daughter. So I think both those things are keeping him down there. Okay. Plus his sudden access to his emotional core is striking.
Right. You always got to, get core work here at the beginning of the year.
Zombie Talion says too many different storylines are running and the Walker betrayal was not fantastic. Disagree. Was there the whole time. Just feels like a forced uncharacteristic of Walker and an unnecessary side quest.
There you go.
All the extra side quests make it feel rushed. For this, I will give this a 5 triple S.
Triple S?
Slippery side stories.
Ooh, man, ouch. You know what? No Pico Jake, he seemingly liked episode 8 more because he gave it 8 out of 10 triple S's.
Oh, for the slippery side stories?
No, the simple Simon Sims. No, Pico Jake wrote, these kids in Silo 17 have some of the best archery skills. Yeah, they taught themselves, and they do it in the dark. Jake wrote, I'm also still on Team Bernard. Is it just me, or is anyone else annoyed with Walker, Catfish?
Yes.
He says, but how about this, Catfish? Do you agree with Jake on this? He writes, I enjoy rooting for Lukas.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, and Mithra says, you guys rate this episode a lot higher than any I've seen so far from perusing some YouTube Silo recaps and comments.
Huh.
Look, people...
We're always different. What is it?
That's right. Mithra rates this episode a 5 at the most out of 10.
Wow.
First of all, for all the dark screens, Silo 18 is dark, but 17 is even darker. And I know it's pitch black in the book, but this is effing TV. Thank you for someone else having a hard time being able to see this. We don't need pitch black on TV. That's what we call radio. Also, the pacing too slow, and the way it was presented, just a few secs each of Jules and too much Bernard. Oh, yeah, I got to disagree with that. Episode 7, I feel, was great, but this episode was my least favorite of them all.
Dang. Our final bit of feedback we're going to read in this section of the podcast is from Susanna, who wrote of episode 8. I was so bored, and I thought the episode was so dark that they were saving money choosing not to use much electricity. Hell yeah. We
got to be able to see this thing. Get them out of Silo 17.
Okay, for everybody here, we're going to have our book talk section, but that's a different video on YouTube, and it's after our goodbye on the audio podcast. But for everybody here at Double BHQ, my name's Bubba. You can find me on most social media at Fit and Trim. That's FITTENTRIM, at Fit and Trim on most social media.
And I'm Catfish. You can hit me up at G to the Man on Instagram and Blue Sky. That is GETOTHEMAM. Special shout out to Meso Cat, who sent me a very nice message that I didn't get to
Laura
until late.
McMillian. We love her.
Thank you.
Our next podcast is going to be on the final episode of season 2, entitled Into the Fire. The rebels make their move, and so does Juliette.
Ooh. So we will talk to you next week on The Cleaning.
Bernard hates you now, Bernard.
Well, I don't care. Now that I know he's not in charge anymore, I don't have nice things to say.
You're going to be an algorithm anon.
Yes, I'm going to be an algorithm admirer.